Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Monday morning, progressives, and welcome to the February 3rd, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Yeah, catch us on all the socials, Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, Twitter Stream, and iHeartRadio. Just to start, you can email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views short version and long version. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. It was great hanging with Joan on Saturday night up at the North Center for the Performing Arts. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez. Patty's back. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, the Out Chicago crew, and our other great shows on the weekends and, of course, into the evening. Check out our digital platform, which is heartlandsignal.com, and make sure that you access the great information that we have there that you can share with the folks you love. So it's Monday, and we've got some great guests that are going to be with us throughout the entire week. Today we'll have Nathan Schrader back with us, New England College professor, who was with us last week, but we had a couple of technical difficulties. So we will have Nathan back with us this morning in the 7 o'clock hour. And Antonio Ciaccia, who will be with us to talk a little bit about the pharmaceutical industry and some of the things that are happening there and the pharmaceutical and the pharmacy business. So we'll have both of those wonderful folks with us this morning. And then as we make it through the week, tomorrow we will have Holly Kim in studio with us, who's running for office here locally. Candace DeMatteis. Kurt Mullett will be with us on Wednesday. Nick Rios from the Cancer and Lung Association. Rich Logus will be with us, leaving MAGA, and then Jamal Cole on Thursday. And he's a great local activist, My Block, My City, My Hood. Karen Byrne will be with us on Friday, True Blue Politics podcast. Colin Kramer, and of course, Mayor Brandon Johnson with us Friday. So busy week. Lots of folks. We'll keep you posted each day as to who's going to be with us and what's happening. But for now, let's remind you guys to stay tuned for Joan, who'll be joined today. Let's see, Bobby Kogan, Senior Director of the Federal Budget Policy at the Center for American Progress. New York State Senator James Skoufis will be with Joan. Professor Brian Endless, Director of the African American Studies and the African Diaspora at Loyola University here in Chicago. Illinois Comptroller Susana Mendoza, live, local, and progressive Joan Esposito, 2 to 5 p.m. here on WCPT. And then Patty's back. Patty Vasquez is back tonight. She'll be talking to Joyce Mahoney, Regional Vice President of Memory Care and Programming at Belmont Village Living, psychologist and author Susanna Flores, and positivity expert and podcaster Jen Zanotti with some motivational Monday advice. Yes, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Central here on WCPT. And also, for the next couple of days, we'll still be looking to get some information from you guys. What do I mean by that? On the 5th, we'll be celebrating 1 year. Choose Views will be celebrating 1 year on the air. Thought it'd be fun to do an interview to mark the occasion, not the kind of interview that I do here on the show every day, where I ask the questions, but an interview where you ask me the questions and I provide the answers. So starting, we started this last week, and through Wednesday of this week, I'll be inviting you to submit a question for me to answer in a video recording that we'll put online and play on air later in the month of February. And we may extend that a little bit. Ask me about anything, my background, my personal history, my philosophy on life, Devin, my fondest memories, my favorite movies or music, my thoughts about a historical or current event, my most memorable moments hosting Choose Views, whatever you have in mind. To submit a question, you can text us at 773-763-9278. I hope I didn't miss your text last week or over the weekend, But if I did and you haven't had a response from me yet, then email me at richard@wcpt820.com your questions. And I have already gotten some, and we're going to start to pull those together and be able to have this fun little clam bake item for you sometime later this month. So get those in. We'll give you a couple extra days. We might stretch it out to the end of the week. But either way, I want you guys to be able to participate. And definitely check out our featured interviews and podcasts and conversations with the likes of Tony Preckwinkle, State Representative Norma Hernandez, Greg Pallas, Mayor Johnson, Illinois Representative Will Guzzardi, Immigration Attorney Kate Lincoln Finch, Ben Jealous, John Fugelsang, Dana Goldberg, and more. Choose Views, featured interviews and full episodes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeart. And of course, you can search for Choose Views or get the links on my show page at heartlandsignal.com. Click on my picture. It won't go away. And listen, you can listen live, as we've said before, by doing this. Tell Alexa, play WCPT from TuneIn. Don't say, hey, Alexa. Just tell Alexa to play WCPT from TuneIn. And then guess what? You'll have it on. So there you go, guys. We're off to another great week. And I say that in the sense that we as progressive liberal Democrats are fighting hard to do great things. We've had quite a first 2 weeks of the orange decorated menace one, which we're going to get into and talk about, and some of the things that happened over this weekend that I know many of you guys heard about, have seen, read, and all. But we will definitely lean into that and chat about how to navigate some of the things that have come our way and that will be coming our way in the days and weeks to come. So for now, we're going to hit a couple of Choose Views news items to keep you up to snuff on what's happening with some of the companies that are in and around the country, like Costco. Their union reached a tentative deal, and Teamsters for their new contract, averting a strike by thousands of workers. The deal, which covers less than 10% of the retailer's 219,000 employees, will go before union members to a vote. Details will be shared shortly. Now that we're in the beginning of this week, according to the Teamsters. Workers had pushed for better pay and benefits to keep up with rising costs. Costco also reportedly announced wage increases for non-union employees starting in March. So that's just around the corner. Starbucks, their union, withdrew their lawsuit representing more than 10,000 baristas. They've agreed, the two parties that filed against each other, according to the company, which was clearing a hurdle as they work toward a contract agreement. The two sides agreed to work with a mediator, and this week that will hopefully produce some results after talks that took place late last year. They're now working with the mediator. Workers United, which represents over 500 cafes, is pushing for higher wages and benefits, while Starbucks has said the union's demands are unsustainable. They better find a happy medium. There's going to be some upset coffee holders. A little bit of sarcasm there. And of course, as we all know, Donald Trump is imposing 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and a 10% tariff on Chinese goods, and 10% tariff on Canadian energy products, effective tomorrow. The White House says Trump signed executive orders, of course, on Saturday. The administration is targeting the nation's two largest trading partners in an attempt to persuade them to stop the flow of immigrants and drugs into the country. In response, both Canada and Mexico leaders said they will impose retaliatory tariffs. The tariffs are not going to stop the folks coming to our country, y'all. I mean, if that were the case, then we'd have tariffs on every country on the planet. So we'll get into that a little bit. More workers now have two jobs. Many people, unfortunately, one job is not going to cut it anymore after several years of inflation and wages that haven't risen in kind. The number of people working a second gig or supplementing their income with a, quote, side hustle is at its highest since 2019, according to the Washington Post. But while the trend is indicative of rising prices, researchers see a helpful takeaway too. The labor market is strong and job opportunities are plentiful. Gen Z, they say they're burning out. I don't know. They may constitute the youngest generational cohort in the workforce, but Generation Z is already facing burnout, according to a recent Gallup study. The report says that they're feeling disengaged with work and their older counterparts, more so than the first time in nearly 2 decades. Zoomers employment often has an existential edge, according to a different Gallup survey this month. Younger workers are the most worried about AI harming their career prospects. And that's what I found to be very interesting there. So, the cities that are struggling to curb over-tourism, and we talked about this before in terms of what New York is doing, specifically Manhattan. International travel is booming, and bans, fees, and taxes aimed at controlling over-tourism have limited some success, according to the New York Times. While some cities have imposed restrictions on cruise ships, short-term rentals, and new hotels, these efforts are often hindered by the need for revenue and jobs. With international travel expected to rise 12.4% this year, over-tourism is likely to worsen, prompting one industry expert to call for a new way to define success. So there you go, guys. A few Choose Views items this morning. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views. Guys, we'll be right back.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chu.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that. Let's get the conversation going on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So, the Republicans need to stop, and MAGA needs to stop trying to compare Biden to Harris and saying that Biden did this and Trump's, because if you dislike Biden, stop comparing him with Trump, because completely different animals. And this is just to give you an example. Just because you didn't like President Biden, even some that are in the center left. You can't make the comparisons that a lot of people have been trying to make. And I'll lean into this and kind of tie this to the events of the weekend. At least President Biden didn't brag about sexually assaulting women. He never called Mexican citizens or Mexican people rapists. He didn't spend years harassing a former POTUS and saying that he wasn't born in the United States of America. Biden didn't refuse to release his tax returns, which is interesting, Devin. We still haven't seen Donald Trump's tax returns from the first election, during the time out of office, and now that he's back in office. We still haven't seen his tax returns. Y'all realize that? That's how much of a fire hose of BS we've had to endure with Donald Trump, that the tax returns is almost like something we just skipped over and forgot. And, not a mandatory thing, but a customary, strongly customary, and should have been leaned into. But President Biden didn't, refuse to release his tax returns. He didn't have to settle multiple lawsuits, including some that were fraud and sexual assault and housing discrimination. Biden didn't pay a porn star hush money to hide an affair. These are all factual things. These are not anecdotal or opinions. He didn't work with Russia or any foreign country that we know of to steal an election. And Biden hasn't been impeached twice or once. Biden wasn't forced to pay $83 million to a woman that he is an adjudicated rapist of. And he wasn't indicted on 91 felony charges, and he certainly wasn't convicted for 34 felony charges. And he didn't incite a violent insurrection to affect the transfer of power. He did, on the other hand, work to bring us back from a disastrous pandemic. And he did work to make sure that our relationships across the globe were repaired to the best of his ability and healed because of what the person they try to compare to did. So the next Democratic president, and there will be one again, is going to have to fix a lot of the things that have been broken by Donald Trump and his current craziness. And just to give you, let's just run through some things that we know happened. When we know about the tariffs, and we've known for a long time. You know, there's different. Different's not the right word. Different opinions on tariffs. There's different measures of tariffs, and by having there be different measures of tariffs, there's some legitimate arguments that they do have their place. We know that, but as a tool to impact something like immigration, that's really not an effective tool. The thing that Donald Trump is not good at, and has been good at in terms of political strength, is the thing that he's so often told people that he was at, which he was a great deal maker. You're not a great deal maker when you use power to impose it on other people or other entities. That's not good deal making. That's not good being a good political partner or a good global partner. That's just using force. And I know that the U.S. has used force in many venues and theaters throughout the world. But in the cases like this, with regard to imposing tariffs, to get two countries that are our bordering countries, our northern and southern bordering countries, to stop, migration or immigration, maybe we should impose some. Maybe Illinois should impose some tariffs or some guidelines on Texas for human trafficking. But that being said, we could go deep into the conversation around tariffs, and I won't do that this morning because it is a layered conversation that takes more, that needs more coverage than what we have in the time that we have here today or on any given day. The tariffs are, without a doubt, by the economists that are not in the tank on the right, that are neutral, and maybe leaning left politically. But those that are neutral have been saying for months before the election that the types of tariffs that were going to be imposed are going to cause harm. And this is where MAGA really, they don't frustrate me like, oh my God, I can't believe. This is where they just tick me off. Your guy said we're going to impose tariffs. This is during the election, run up to the election, and it's going to be better for the country. It's going to be better for everyone. And that he was imposing tariffs would also be a way to bring prices down and to make our economy better, and all the garbage that he threw out and you guys just ate up. And now, twice since being in office, he said that the tariffs are going to cause some pain. And he said that, it's going to be that way and that we aren't going to necessarily bring prices down. I mean, if you as the folks that voted for him just feel like that you're going to tolerate, I mean, you should be out in the streets. You all should be out in the streets, not just the progressive liberal Democratic voter, but the Republicans who bought that and drank it down throat full should be out in the streets. You're going to have to endure some pain. Your president told you that when the previous president, and that's great. Now I'm getting some texts from people that are saying, yeah, but Biden did this. Okay, whatever, pumpkin. He didn't throw us consciously into turmoil with this garbage. That's precisely what Trump is doing now. He lied to you during the campaign. He told you that that these things weren't going to happen, but if they did happen, they would be for the good of for the good of the country. And then you said, okay, I'm going to go for this guy. I'm going to vote for this guy. And now he's telling you, sorry, there's going to be some pain. You should be out in the streets, Republicans, MAGA. He face forward lied to you. He told you that, we're going to make it better for you. And now he's telling you now there's going to be some pain. How about that? Wow. Isn't that, I mean, I'm astonished by, and I'm reading a text, guys. That's why there was a little bit of a pause. Here's one of the texts that we got. I love that there's some people out there that like to refer to me as the abbreviated version of Richard. as a way to be sarcastic. You know what I'm saying. Yep. Begins with a D and ends with a K. I've been referred that way for a long time, so keep it coming. It's nothing new. Oh, goodness gracious. Biden pardoned his whole family. No, he didn't. You know, if you're going to say stuff like that, folks, like you're going to get the smoke. He didn't pardon his whole family. He pardoned some members of his family. But this is the rub. Biden pardoned his whole family, which gave Trump the green light to pardon J6 protesters. Okay, Pumpkin. First of all, he was going to do that whether he pardoned his son and I think it's his brother or not. And he didn't pardon his wife, didn't pardon his grandchildren, his nieces and nephews. So when you say whole family, to me, that means whole family. So either be accurate or, you know, don't be accurate. But we can see through the lack of information. How about that? We won't call anybody any names. But listen, y'all, I think that the folks that are part of the MAGA crowd, y'all should be the ones out screaming and yelling because he straight up lied to you. This is going to be great for the country. And now he's telling folks there's going to be some pain. I mean, and Devin and I were kind of talking a little bit about this right before we came on the show, about these folks that are out there running around, you know, now trying to figure out what happened. How could we have let this happen? I can't believe my vote. You know, there's a part of some people that are just like, why would we feel anything for you? Because we tried to tell you. We really, really did, not just to be political. We tried to tell you that this was going to be problematic. And, you know, to go back to the tariffs for a second, like I said, did I not say, Devin, that we understand that there is a place for tariffs? I didn't say tariffs across the board should not be happening. Did I say that? I think I said, in fact, I know I said that tariffs there's a place for them properly used, but to recklessly use them and then say that they're for the purpose of fixing immigration is BS. Economically, it's BS. So we know that tariffs have been part of the playbook. It's just Biden used them, Obama used them, Clinton used them, Bush 1 and 2. They have to be properly used, not just as a reckless tool to, you know, fix immigration. Don't head fake on immigration with tariffs. Fix immigration. You know, the two don't get to be married up. All right. Before we go to break, the one thing that I do want to say about this weekend that we will talk about in the second half of the hour, is the stolen. Well, let's put it this way: not the stolen, but the fact that Elon Musk and his band of merry men, and we tried to tell you, but now he and his boys have access to the Treasury and access to our financial systems in a way that people. I saw a great piece from Rachel Maddow. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that and what I think should be happening to affect it as quickly as possible. So we'll take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views. We'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. So one of the things that I like to do is when someone who is a person that's in the support of the Republican Party and in the support of MAGA and support of Trump, the GOP, is compare and contrast to what the economic downfalls have been of Republican leadership and the economic gains have been of Democratic leadership. And time again, although there are pieces that the Democrats don't handle the best way, the Democratic Party has typically led a stronger economies and fixed the horrible things that the Republicans have done to our economy. Whether we go back to the 30s, we come up to the 80s and forward from there. historically, those numbers just keep repeating themselves in favor of Democratic leadership on a national level. And that's where we aren't headed now with this 34-time convicted felon in office. So over the weekend, it was, I guess last Thursday, Musk and his boys were trying to get into the Treasury. And there was a battle between the gentleman that was leading, Lubsick, I think it's the correct pronunciation of his name, and Musk and his Doge boys. And they were able to get him, they were going to fire him, so he decided to step down. Now they have access. Now, to the extent of what, when, and how, we don't know. That's probably what we're still digging in to get to. But the point I'm making in this is, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm making a point, but presenting a thought process. So what is it that they want with that information? What good is it going to cause? That's the question that I want to ask. I want to hear from you guys in this. What good is it going to cause for a civilian, not an elected official, not someone that's had to go through any sort of congressional hearing and review, period? Now, basically, he's an outsider, a private citizen that has access to information about our systems that should be private from certain people that don't have security clearances. But, of course, Donald Trump, because people were stupid enough to vote for him. Now, a person that he's selected, appointed, has the ability to potentially cause some harm, because you can't tell. No one on the right, and I put this out here, has shown me anything that will come that's good that will come from having a private citizen that's not been elected to office, that hasn't gone through any of our political rigors. What good that's going to bring to the country? No one's been able to, on the right or in the middle, to tell me that. And so my question and concern is linked back to the documents, the papers that Donald Trump stole when he left office, that he still hasn't been convicted of. Okay? I want to know what the linkage is there, because I think that the dotted lines are getting closer together. That those documents and the fact that we've got an issue with Elon Musk, and very probably some things tied to voter suppression, that there may very well be. And I love Greg Palast, but this is where one of those moments where I'm not disagreeing with him, but I'm saying there's more to this than meets the eye. The voter suppression tied to tampering is probably more of a thing than we particularly, and I'd kind of put that to rest and somewhat in my head. But this weekend, I thought, why would they want that information, and what would they do with it that's harmful? Well, the Social Security piece, the Medicaid, all the things that are about people getting paid is an obvious one. But what about all the other information on not only citizens, but allies, and where we have, what's the word? We have financial relationships with other countries. So now just because he's the richest man on the planet doesn't mean the doggone thing. But here we are. He's got access to various information, and the conversation is going to come back up again. It has to, about, voter suppression was a huge part of what happened in this election, and has happened in previous elections. But I also now have some questions that have come about again about when these folks have access to information, what are they actually doing with it? How are they actually tampering with things that are private information? It's a question that I'm stuck on, and my brain is still trying to get my head wrapped around that. So, my suggestion, not being an attorney but understanding certain parts of the law, is that our state attorneys generals need to get together yet again and determine what they're going to do to protect information in states, particularly blue states, as it relates to what Musk and his folks might try to do when it comes to the Treasury. They need to be prepared for any shenanigans that take place that are state that breach any state guidelines or state laws. That's what I'm hoping to see from the state attorneys generals, because that has to be the firewall. If Musk and his people start to mess with financial matters in Treasury that are Treasury-related matters that then affect states, blue states particularly, which I'm certain that that's what they're going to try to start to do, then the state attorneys general need to be prepared for that. They need to be prepared that if there are Musk acts, that they are able to investigate them and potentially prosecute. So we'll see where that goes, but that's what popped into my brain this weekend when I heard this. So let's hear from you guys, see what folks have to say this morning. Let's go to Troy here in the Chicago area. Hey, Troy, good morning and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Mr. Richard. A long time since I spoke to you, Mr. Richard.
Okay. You got a little bit of background noise, so see what you can do about that. I'm not sure if you're in the car or if you're walking. But...
I'm in the 18-wheeler, Mr. I'm going to do the best I can.
All right.
Why the richest man in the world wants to have a boss?
Say that again?
Why the richest man in the world wants to have a boss?
Oh, why does the richest man in the world want to have a boss?
Yes. And another thing, I'm going to say this and I'm going to get off. He already said he's going to demolish Black History Month. I wonder what he's going to do to St. Patrick's.
Good question, Troy. Thank you for the call this morning, man. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Yeah, I mean, I'll repeat what I believe I heard Troy say. Why would the richest man in the world want to have a boss? And I get that, and I understand it. It's a good question, actually. And I don't have an answer to it. I'd be speculating, so I won't do that. The other thing that he said is if Trump is going to disallow and by executive order any acknowledgement of Black History Month, what's he going to do when it comes to St. Patty's Day? So it's actually, I hadn't even thought about that. So, but it's a good question. It actually is a really good question because there's other things that we celebrate, not necessarily as federal holidays, but there's other things that we do celebrate as a country that are acknowledgments of our history as a country, not just Black history. I mean, we know what's going to happen with Juneteenth. That's going to be, we're going to see the carnage that he tries to create around that, and anything else that recognizes other cultural groups. I'll be curious to see which ones don't get the axe, if you will. That being said, let's grab another call. Let's go to Roosevelt here in Chicago. Roosevelt, good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Richard, thank you, my brother, for taking my call.
You're welcome.
A short one. Why didn't Mexico, or what if Mexico would have imposed a tariff on the United States for the number of weapons that they take down there in Mexico, and the same people that grow the products that we eat here that are exported from Mexico are terrorized by the American weapons, because that's the one thing that we do export, and that is weapons.
Yeah.
So Mexico, what if they would have done this a long time ago when all this started with these AR-15s? Because that's what they used down there, those cartels, which, by the way, he has said that he wants to get into Mexico because of those cartels and because of the number of drugs. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One thing doesn't go with the other. One thing, to add to what you said, what do we hit tariffs on the whole world? That's what you said, right?
Hey.
So what does one thing have to do with the other? And then the United States has how many number of bases around the world? I believe it's 80 of them. And what that, I think it was on Honduras, the ones that said, hey, listen, what if I was to kick you out? You don't pay anything to have your base here in the country of Honduras. So Those are two things that I put together. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, we know that, and we've talked about this before, and we know that the United States has a certain hand in the game when it comes to the destabilization of other countries on a lot of levels. And we've done great work in terms of our, sort of our social and contributory actions and supporting other countries. But we also know that we've had a hand in what's happened in other countries, whether it be guns, whether it be other weaponry, and the list goes on in terms of environmental havoc that we've caused and environmental harm. So this is where, I think a lot of times Americans just think, oh, we're perfect. We do nothing wrong. Our country is always the bright, shining light on the hill. And the list goes on of all these phrases that the country uses to try to depict itself as being this impossibly anything other than perfect and wonderful union, when in fact we're not. If we were to sit down and have a conversation with God or Jesus or Allah or Buddha, and the list goes on of the various religious, iconic figures that we, aspire to, I think they all would say we've fallen short of that. And, whether it be Mexico, whether it be, Canada, whether it be Mexico or any of the other sort of south of the border and or Caribbean countries, we've been a part of their destabilization in many ways. So your point's well taken, Roosevelt, and a lot of it's because America just doesn't have the willingness or isn't willing to look at itself and say, these are problems that we've caused outside of the borders of the United States of America.
And Richard, in closing, here's a theory that I had. As far as what he's doing with these tariffs, I think he's doing it on purpose. The mistake that we make, I make also, is the fact that we think in a rational way. There is no rationality to this guy. And I'm glad you mentioned that the fact that destabilizing. I think he wants to hurt the economy of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. But here's the question. If you're going to ask me why, there's no reasoning. He's creating problems. Remember, he makes a hole, then he fixes the hole. He says, look what I did. So there is no rationality to why he's doing this, in my opinion, because everybody's going to be affected, all three countries.
Yeah.
Look at it.
It's what happened. It's what's happened in the past, Roosevelt. And we're gonna grab a quick break. It's what's happened in the past where if we can flush down enough garbage on people, they won't be able to sustain. They'll walk away, and then we'll come in and scoop up all the leavings. And it's textbook when Republicans are in office. They've done it over and over and over. They've torn things down. They've made things worse. They've caused harm, not just here in the United States, but other parts of the globe. For what reason? To go in. And what did Trump say? We should go in and take when we had this one incursion. I forgot in the Middle East, but he said we should have taken the oil. Oh no, he was referencing our I think it was Afghanistan. I apologize, guys. I know what I'm thinking. It's this. I'm not. When you said that, Roosevelt, it made me think about this one comment that he made. It's about going in and essentially raping and pillaging, and that now he wants to do that here in the United States. You're going to have to endure the pain. That sounds like a rapist to me. Take it. We're just going to. You got to. America, you're about to get, domestically assaulted. If we haven't already been. Roosevelt, thanks, man. Good to hear your voice. Glad you're well. And we're going to take a quick break. But thanks for giving us a call this morning, Roosevelt. Be well. All right, guys, 773-763-9278. When we come back, we'll grab a few more of your calls. This is Choose Views. We'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. And yes, it is Black History Month. So we'll see what happens in that space of other recognitions federally that Trump will want to denounce. But we'll see if we'll see. I'll stop there. I said I used a phrase a moment ago before the break, domestically assaulted, and no disrespect to anyone in me using that phrase. I'm talking about the country being assaulted. And, the words from Trump, it's going to be some pain and just going to have to endure it. What does that sound like? It sounds like assault to me. And the country is about to get assaulted. It's, so brace yourselves, because we can't say it enough. We tried to tell so many people. And those who didn't listen and said that this was I saw this clip. I was telling my wife, Ann, about this. I saw this clip this weekend, Devin, where this woman, a Latino woman, said that, she said, please, Black America, don't be upset with me. And she had a clip, like 10 different clips of, she said, her Latina sisters who were all in the tank for Trump. Totally in the tank, MAGA hats, the whole nine. Posted videos throughout the course of the leading up to the election and post-election about how great and excited they were. They were totally MAGA. And then she posted a side-by-side showing how like half of those women were now, they couldn't believe that their family members were being, rounded up and such. And she said two things. She said, we did try to tell you. And this is a Latina woman that posted this information. And she also said, please, Black America, we know you need to take a break, but please don't hate me and hate others that we're not all in that same group. And that's true. So we do have to be mindful of that. But at the same time, we try to tell you. So we have a couple of clips that are not from people who are of the Mexican or Latin or Hispanic community, but speaking to how the impact of this rounding up of people is taking place. And we'll get to that in a second. We want to grab a couple of quick calls. Let's go to Kurt in Akron real quickly. Hey, Kurt, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, bud. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Hey, first of all, congratulations on your first year.
Thank you.
Yep. And anywho, one thing you forgot is Joe Biden didn't cheat on his first wife with his second wife like Trump did. In fact, if you remember, Joe Biden buried his first wife and infant daughter just days before Christmas.
Yep, sure did.
So, and then here's the other thing I want to say, too, is you were talking about Trump saying, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, the tariffs are going to be beautiful, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And then the other day he says we're going to have to endure pain. If you remember, Joe Biden always said, we're going to have to do things that are going to, we're going to have some pain, but at the end, it'll be better. Look at COVID, how we had the pain during those first couple months or year when he was in office. And just look at how by 2023, we started seeing a turnaround with his policies, because as people should know from basic civics, it takes about 18 months to 2 years for a new president's policies to take effect.
Yeah. And that's the reason why one of the reasons I should say, he kept saying, we've got to finish the job, because he understood. And this is as much as there's criticism about, quote, career politicians and, all that other thing, he understood and understands the way in which Washington works and how that impacts us on a state and local level. And that's the reason and it's a good point that you made about understanding civics and the time that it does take for things to come into play. Conversely, though, and give me your thoughts on this, Trump's executive orders are having immediate impact and harm versus waiting 18 months.
And that's because it's not going through the proper channels. I mean, Joe Biden could have any kind of an executive order, and it could be right away effective, where Joe Biden preferred the way it should be done, because then it becomes law. Like, it goes through Congress, it gets negotiated, it gets whittled down a little bit. You get your side, I get my side, and then it becomes law when he signs it in, and then it becomes part of our statutes in our book. Yep. Where an executive order, look at what Donald Trump is erasing with all these executive orders. I mean, what is it? He just raised the price of insulin and prescription drugs for seniors. I mean, even though that's the law with the Inflation Reduction Act, all the next president has to do, Democratic president, I should say, is reverse that again with an executive order. We can go back to to what it was when Biden signed that into law. I mean,
yeah. And that's a situation where civics and people understanding that without going through the process of Congress, and Congress is that other leg of government being involved, we've got an imbalanced federal system. And
if you remember too, a lot of things that seemed near impossible for Joe Biden to get passed. You know, I mean, we were literally on a thread thinking, oh gosh, this isn't going to happen. And then what happened at the last minute with his power of negotiation, because like you said, he understood the way the government worked, he was able to get things narrowly passed in Congress. Talk about the ultimate art of the deal.
Yeah, exactly. Good point, Kurt. All right, man. Good to hear your voice on this Monday morning. We will talk soon. Thanks, Kurt.
Great. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's go to our friend Cindy, I believe, over in Michigan. Could this be a township, Cindy?
This is she.
Good Monday morning, Cindy, and welcome to the show.
She.
How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm up early and wishing you a happy new year for your show.
Thank
you got
you.
the next year and more. I thought about that this morning. I thought, it's been a year.
Yeah, right?
So, the thing with the tariffs, I fortunately up here, if I turn my radio a certain way, I can get Canadian stations, and they don't say BS. They say the whole word up there.
I know.
And they're already planning strategies to work with their own government so that they're, can do a few things to offset some of this. And they wanted to remind their American listeners that we get most of our building products from up there. Yep. And housing costs will just immediately go through the roof. And as will fuel costs in the Midwest, because they send down the fuel from up that way to the nearest processing, which is in Indiana. So
here's
that
one.
affects our prices here.
Here's a couple for you, Cindy, to your point. 25% tariff on, and this was sent to me as a reminder this morning, 25% tariff on Canadian goods means a major hit to the construction industry, to your point. 30% of our construction lumber comes from Canada. Try that on, MAGA. 30% comes from Canada.
And the other thing is that where Windsor is and Detroit, a lot of Canadians and Americans travel back and forth and work. There are Americans working in Canada, Canadians working in the United States, and constantly moving back and forth. Yep. And there's some treaties that are involved in all of that on those bridges and stuff. I mean, this is a man who has no respect for personal boundaries, as you said, physical boundaries. And now the treaties are part of that. He, as far as United States, Canada, and Mexico, he's the one who came up with that treaty, the most recent one.
Yeah.
And that we've been abiding by for the last, 5 or 6 years now. He's splitting his own treaty apart. He wants to play games with the treaty in Panama. Who knows what other treaties? NATO, perhaps. He would love to get rid of that.
Sure.
And from the inside out. The thing that I see, and that I know that Steve Bannon still has his network of minions out there working to destabilize governments. And they do it from the inside out. Yeah. We've already got Germany on the edge, France, places like that. Down in South America, he's been playing games, and this is part of it. The two governments on either side of us are more liberal than our government. They would love to see regime change from within.
Yeah.
And destabilizing that. And that's what I see. I see a big picture situation as well as a petty picture situation. Because when he says, well, it's for fentanyl and it's for this, that sounds good to the MAGA who goes, squirrel, and looks over there. Yeah, fentanyl, that's the new word. Yeah, we don't want that. And he's doing the right thing by us. I have a friend of mine who's definitely MAGA and watches Fox all day long. And she's, I would say, gullible. Mm-hmm. And I feel sorry for her. And I can't really get any kind of a conversation on an adult level because it feels like I'm talking to somebody in junior high. And that's the people that he enjoys talking to, this Trump.
Yeah, it goes back to what he said once before, that he loves the unintelligent or the uneducated.
The uneducated.
Yeah, and here we are. I mean and I'll say this thing, then we got to hit this top of the hour break, Cindy. Meanwhile, to your point about the gullibility, the fentanyl, we're going to stop fentanyl by raising tariffs. Meanwhile, they're letting their boys with Doge go in and tamper with our financial systems and our treasury, and MAGA's too, distracted. I'm not going to call them stupid, but they're too gullible.
And my quick point on Social Security, this is my prediction as a psychic. Watch him try to put it into Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, yes, Cindy. You said it right. The Canadians are using the full word. I can't use it here, but I thank you for reminding me of it. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
As always. Have a great week, okay, Cindy?
Bye.
Bye now. She's funny, guys. All right, let's take a quick break. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to the second hour of Choose Views. 773-763-9278. Give us a holler, send us a text. And shout out to a few of you. Shout out to Laura, who sent me a text this morning. And also to some of the people that I met on Saturday up at the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts. It was great to see you guys out enjoying yourselves. And nice to meet some folks and take a few pictures here and there. So appreciate you guys. And also, just remember, this week we are going to be celebrating 1 year of Choose Views on the air. We thought it'd be fun to do an interview to mark the occasion, but not the kind of interview I do every day on this show where I ask the questions, but an interview where you ask me the questions and I provide the answers. So, of course, we've been running this since last Friday, and we'll keep it going through this week. I'm inviting you to submit a question to me to answer in a video recording that we will put online and play later in the month of February. Ask me about anything, my background, my personal history, my philosophy on life, my fondest memories, favorite movies or music, my thoughts about a historical or current event, and most memorable moments hosting Choose Views, whatever you have on your mind. To submit a question, you can text us at 773-763-9278 or email me at richard@wcpt820.com. I'd like to hear from you, see what you have to say. And of course, if you're listening live, you can just tell Alexa to play WCPT from TuneIn. All right, guys. So I mentioned earlier that we had a couple of clips that I thought would be good for you guys to hear in this conversation around We Tried to Tell You. When I talked earlier, when Kurt called in about the cost of, construction, or I shouldn't say with Kurt, it was Cindy. Apologize, Cindy. This is something that's real. And the tariffs are not going to make it any better. We're not going to endure just a short-term pain, Donald Trump. It's going to be longer, and it's harmful. And it's immediately harmful. And here are two examples, not from me, but from people who are out there on the street dealing with this. Let's go to the clip, Devin, of the gentleman that's a Florida roofing contractor.
This is an update on the ICE raids from the perspective of a general contractor. I just had a roofer completely cancel on my job because he is picking up the pieces from all of his other job sites that got raided, and the crews are just gone. So I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and this is a roofer that I've been working with for years. It's sub, it's labor, and I'm providing materials and working under my roofing license with my supervision. So it's how many of the roofers do it down here. And we were figuring out the final details, and I'm like, hey man, let's get that final number together. And I was kind of trying to figure out because he hadn't sent me the final price yet. And I'm like, what's going on, dude? And he finally wrote me just now, and he said, I have to walk from this job. I cannot physically complete it because I am personally working on a number of roofs that the crews are just gone. So how is this helping us?
There you go. How is this helping us? Now, there's people who are going to say, but yeah, Richard, we got to get the illegals out of the country. There's President Obama had his finger on that conversation, as did President Biden. So I'm not saying that the illegal folks from any part of the world that are here illegally should not be dealt with. Never have said that, and I won't ever say that. We're just being reckless in the way in which we're doing it. And it's impacting people right directly in their day-to-day lives. And what's interesting about all this in many ways is that people I'm not astonished at the numbers of people that have said, I can't believe I voted, can I change my vote, or all these things that we've seen since Election Day. And the answer is no, you can't. No, you can't. There's some fixes that the Democratic leadership have in hand, and I can't believe, maybe I shouldn't say I can't believe, I'm maybe pleasantly surprised at the number of people that I saw that sent me things on social media about this conversation around impeachment. And I said it last week, particularly after the freeze of funds caused immediate pain for folks. Immediate. It didn't take a week or longer. It was immediate because of the disruption. So Democrats that are elected officials across the board at all levels should be looking at ways in which to put forward the energy to call for an impeachment. It doesn't matter if this is the thing. Sometimes Democrats take a position that I think is necessarily effective, and that is to wait to make sure that they've got the votes. Well, sometimes the optics are what voters need to see. It's what, the regular everyday person needs to see, that the folks that they've voted for are doing the work. And so sometimes you don't have the votes. You still have to bring it to the floor. You still have to make it a conversation point. There should be Democrats saying, maybe it's time for us to impeach Donald Trump yet a third time. And yeah, we know that we don't have the numbers in the House. That it shouldn't stop the leadership from moving forward in that space. That's more than my opinion. I was about to say that's just my opinion. It's not. I saw hundreds of folks that on social media posted, and I'm not talking about folks who, out there on the far ends of the world politically. We're talking about many mainstream voices that were saying the same thing. So that's a tool that we have for those who say, I can't believe I voted this way, or this is not what I expected. Well, if you want to see some change in that space, then maybe it's time you contact your elected officials on all levels and say, let's get this guy out of here. And I know the other side of that is J.D. Vance and all the Doge boy dude bros that are behind him. I get that. But it's making a statement. It's moving us in a direction to get rid of this craziness and this carnage. And that's what it is. It's happening right now, live. It's not Memorex. Can I say that? It's an old commercial in case you guys don't remember. And to that end, I want, there's another clip that Dev and I put together speaking similarly, but from a different person speaking similarly about the same concern about the ICE raids. Let's go with those.
Yeah, we voted for Trump in 2016, 2020, and 2024. We live in the Florida Panhandle, and we thought that this would be good for our business, but we're finding out now that we were wrong, and I want to publicly say that we are regretting our votes at this point. My husband and me own a construction company, and we literally do not have workers anymore. Most of our workers are from Mexico, and they're good, hard workers. I talked to a few of them, and they said they were just too scared to come back to work because of all the raids. Our construction company is likely to go out of business now, and we don't know what we're going to do, but we're never voting for a Republican again. Ron DeSantis and Trump have been passing laws that negatively affect our business, and I just want to say that I'm sorry for voting for him. I grew up Republican, and it's all I've ever known, but now I can see that me and my whole family have been very wrong about this. So we hope that 2026 comes and we can take back the House and the Senate and stop him from what he's doing. There's a special election coming up in Matt Gaetz's district, and we're going to do everything we can to advocate for a Democrat taking that seat.
See, that's why should folks have to go through the pain of losing their business, potentially losing their business because of that vote? If I can say anything to those who might be of this woman's same scenario, start paying attention, y'all. Stop fighting us and telling us we are, we're destructive liberals, and we're like this guy who sent our friend Kurt Mullett, this local official in Indiana, sent this, posted a tweet, whatever it was. He was referencing our party. No, we're not the party that wants to destroy businesses by taking away one of the resources that they need to, bless you, Devin, to sustain themselves. We're not that party. And I hate that this woman is enduring and is about to potentially endure more pain and anguish because of how she and so many other people voted. And she's in Florida. She's in the Panhandle. And we know the craziness that's gone on and going on down there. I feel for her in some way because I guess when we put it, the reason that I do is because, she said something that you may have missed. All my life, this is all I've been exposed to. So, stop being narrow-minded in your exposures. Expand it a little bit. Maybe listen to some people that have a different point of view about what will be better for you, or maybe not better for you, but better for all of us. Stop fighting that. Just stop fighting it. There's a lot people throwing you a life preserver, and you're still swimming out to sea. The boat that you were on has had an incident, and you're in the water now, and the sharks are there. Stop fighting us. Stop fighting us. Take the life preserver and let us help you get to safety, and bring some people with you as we go forward. That's the other part of what I would say to her. If I had a conversation with this woman face to face or whatever way, I would say, okay, great. I'm glad that you figured it out and you want to see people, better leaders in your own state, in your own district. And for those who are MAGA that follow this show, that are trolls and say certain things and text and call in, and that woman is the type of person that's savable. Those that are trolls, that are MAGA trolls, that are locked into their way of belief, you're not really ones that we can save. So rather than throwing you a life preserver, we're going to throw you some stones, not literally. But that lady is someone who we want to welcome her to the conversation, and we need to get her to bring some people with her. That's incredibly important, and it's an opportunity that I hope now that we have a new DNC chair and a new DNC team, that they will recognize that. I posted some things about that this weekend in terms of who was on the team. And I had some initial frustration with, some of the folks that have been selected, David Hogg being one of them and all that. But I understand the goal in having some of the younger faces be part of the DNC team, and that's to bring younger voters to the table. At the same time, don't skip over who your bread and butter is in terms of the African-American men and African-American women and the Latino men and women who have been part of the Democratic Party for such a long time. Don't just skip over those people in the leadership and the team just to say, well, we're going to go after the young white bros. I'm just warning you, DNC, don't do that. And I know that's a hard pill for some people to hear, but don't just skip over. That will be harmful to the party's success in the future. Don't do it. I'm telling you. I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart. Make sure you're all inclusive in the faces that are representative of the DNC's team. If it's congratulations that we've got a new DNC chair, Ken Martin. But Ken, and listen, it sounds like he's coming out the right way, Devin. He's coming out swinging, and I applaud him for that. He needs to keep swinging. He needs to be the rhinoceros versus the lion. But don't, in that effort, skip over the people that are the baseline of the party, because it will be destructive beyond what you can imagine. So I'm excited to see that he came out swinging, and he says that it's time to go on offense against Trump. I agree with that. It's time to go on offense against the Republican Party, the MAGA wing that's become more than a wing of the party. Please don't do that. Come out fighting, but don't skip over folks just to, we have, again, this is where all players means all players. This is what Ken Martin's biggest challenge is going to be, is being inclusive, truly being a big tent, and truly bringing in the people that are going to represent the entire nation, rather than just trying to go after micro communities. Go after all of them at the same time. That's what they have to do. All right, we blew past this break. Let's take a quick break. Devin, we'll get some calls on the back end. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. 773-763-9278. A couple of texts, Devin. One said that that woman should have hired, that business owner should have been hiring American workers. Okay. Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. But when you say American workers, whoever is saying that, are those American workers? Are they American workers that look, that wear a certain costume? I mean, what's the definition of American workers? When I hear that, the first thing that comes to mind is just to ask the question: are people saying American workers and they should be white, or are we saying American workers and they should be citizens? And that's the answer. I don't care what anybody else has to say in that space. If we're going to hire American workers, that they should be citizens, I'm down with that. But it shouldn't be that they look a certain way. And that's what oftentimes is that underbelly. We're the patriots. We're the Americans. We're the true Americans. Oh, really? Okay. All right. There's some immigrants from the south of the border that have been here legally for 3, 4, 5 decades. There are people that have come to the United States from Europe that are here on expired visas. So which ones should be taken out of the country? Which ones are the true Americans? So, anyhow, another great text. Let me get to these guys. It isn't that MAGA isn't listening. MAGAs aren't listening. It's that they weren't affected before. Things don't affect you until they affect you. That's a great text. Thank you for that. Let's see. Trying to hit these guys. No blacks or Hispanics on the DNC. Just hearing this, okay. No, there are Kenyatta, the gentleman from Pennsylvania. Bless you, Devin. There is an African-American male, African-American female. I think I saw that there was a Hispanic woman. There is a little bit of diversity there. My point is, in terms of the voices, the faces that are seen, the leadership message cannot be one that is, let's go get the young white bros. That cannot be the message from the DNC. And it cannot be a singular message to one single community. It has to be an all-inclusive message to all communities, and particularly there has to be one that speaks to what people say that the Democrats missed, and that is talking to the middle-class mindset in America. The middle-class mindset is oftentimes depicted imagery-wise as representing a white male-led family with a wife and 2 children. Let's just be honest, y'all. Part of the problem that the Democratic conversation doesn't deal with is dealing with the imagery. That's what middle class America has been represented visually as a white male led family with a white woman, 2 children, white woman at home. That's what middle class America has been represented for such a long time to be. So the DNC can't make its next imagery be about focusing on that group or that imagery. It has to be all inclusive of all communities, because there's a lot of black folks who are middle class Americans, Hispanic, Jewish. Listen, that's what the big tent should represent. Bless you, Devin. I'm handing out blessings today, guys. The DNC has to get that in. It has to be in their DNA. The reason that many African Americans were ticked off at the Democratic Party in terms of messaging is because when we talk about middle class America, so often the representation, the visual representation, the imagery is of a stereotypical post-World War II white American family. I'm sure there's a bunch of folks that are either they just felt like they just got pinched on their backside, and there's other people that just raise their hand cheering to say, thank God for saying that. That's the imagery that's been put out there is what representative of the middle America family. Just be honest, y'all. The DNC can't keep buying into and presenting that. Okay? Because that family, that part of America that we all want to be a part of, is a mixture of many different communities and many different cultures and belief systems. And sometimes we say that that's part of the challenge. Our strength is also sometimes our challenge as a Democratic Party. Progressive liberal Democrats have a lot of brains and mindsets and thoughts in it. We're not linear. We're not, just one voice. And some people say we need to have just one voice. Well, that goes back to a comment that I heard from one of Rick Smith's listeners and friends at the Democratic Party. How dare they have Beyonce perform at during the DNC campaigning? Well, so that's to say that Beyonce and her fans are not part of the tent. So the Democratic Party, please don't make DNC specifically. Ken Martin, please don't make the mistake. Please don't make the mistake of focusing your energy, focusing your message, focusing your imagery, focusing your outreach on the stereotypical 1950s post-World War II and Korean War family, because that's not going to win. It's not going to work. I'm telling you, it won't work. If you want an example of what will work, take what Governor Pritzker and Lieutenant Governor Stratton are doing here in Illinois in terms of reaching a broad base of voters, because that's who we are. So, Ken, I'm excited that you, and I'm going to work my behind off to get him on the show. I'm excited that you came out fighting. You came out on the offense. But if I were to give you some advice, you have to make sure that your message is constant, ongoing, far-reaching, and it touches everybody, even touches those on the right who wish they had voted differently. Okay? If I had a sit-down conversation with you, this is part of what I would be giving you advice to do. Don't just go after the young white dude bros that are in the middle in many ways. Don't just go after the LGBTQ community. Don't do it. You have to be willing to go after everybody. Why do I always draw a blank on his name? He's the Democratic candidate that had that crazy Howard Dean. The 50-state strategy and the all-inclusive strategy, all of our players means all of our players strategy, has to be what the DNC takes the lead on this time. So that's how I see it, and I'm hoping that they are going to be they're going to be open to that, and they're going to be willing to fight for that. Let's grab a quick call before we go to the break. Let's go to Bill up in North Wisconsin. Hey, Bill, good morning, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for taking my call. Congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you, sir.
I certainly appreciate listening to your points of view. They're right on the spot. The thing I wanted to mention, and it's not going to do us any good to wring our hands over what happened last November. I think, though, what we need to do is take a page out of the Republican Party. I like saying that with the Massachusetts accent, Republican. And I think Democrats and progressives need to adopt that. I had called the Ashland-Bayfield County Democratic Party with a thought to get rid of our Republican representative, Tom Tiffany, with signposts that would read, terminate might not have been the right word, but that was the word. Terminate Trump, Toady, Tom, Tiff Insurrectiony, putting insurrection between the syllables of his name. But we don't do things like that. And I think we need to start because they're catchy little phrases. The Republicans have been doing that for decades now. And I would like to see more of this sort of thing. For example, refer to the GOP not as the grand old party, but the greedy oligarchs party. And greed is not a good thing, for lack of a better word. Thanks for taking my call, and keep up the good work, sir.
Thanks, Bill, for calling. Thanks for your contribution, and I will do my best, bringing you guys the best that I got every day. Listen, Bill makes a good point. That's kind of why I said what I said, or in part of what I said about the new DNC chair. Fight a little bit differently this time. Be willing to bring both a sling blade and a sledgehammer to the fight. That's what I want to see from the DNC this time. All right, guys, quick break. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. I kind of said my version of this, but from one of our listeners in Texas sent me this text. Chu, Dems don't have a one-size-fits-all message. We have to herd cats to the voting booth, and our cats don't like the same food. Republicans just offer up hate to their cats. That's all the food that their cats need. That's a well put. Yes, I agree, and that's the challenge. And that's what I was saying about our strength is sometimes our challenge. We have a big tent with a lot of voices, and sometimes those lots of voices get in directions that aren't going to help us get things done. That's the challenge of the Democratic Party right now: is who's going to be the leading voice and voices, and how are they going to go about herding the cats? It is like herding cats. I agree with you, Texas, on that. Thanks for listening and thanks for your contributions. That's the work. We can resolve that, though. And I think it takes a strong message that we, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but because we have a guest that we've got to attend to. So thanks, Texas, for your reply this morning. We cover a lot of different things here on our show. And as I say, I always try to have them lined up to what goes on locally, happens, or affects things nationally, or broader conversations that are part of our national import. And this morning, we have the president of 3 Axis Advisors, Antonio Ciaccia, with us this morning to talk a little bit about what's going on in the pharmaceutical industry. And I want to certainly ask him, pick his brain on some of the recent executive orders and potential legislation. Antonio, good morning and welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, thanks to be with you.
Good to be with you as well. Well, listen, I wanted to, there's a number of questions I want to ask you, but I know we're going to have the time to ask them all, which is why we'll have you back in the future. But tell us a little bit about 3 Axis Advisors and how you got this business started. What was sort of your reasoning and your why? And then we'll kind of move into some of the things that you're observing about what's happening with some of our largest pharmacy organizations. Tell us about 3 Axis Advisors.
Yeah, so I'm the son of a pharmacist, was always interested in the world of pharmacy. My second job out of college was working with the Ohio Pharmacists Association, so learning about drug pricing from the perspective of pharmacists. They complained about underpayments within the state Medicaid program years ago. And on the other end of the transaction, the state of Ohio was spending more and more money. Those two things didn't add up to me. How could pharmacies be getting paid less under the program, but the state is paying more? We started engaging in data analytics and helped the state of Ohio uncover $245 million of hidden gap between what pharmacies were being paid and what the state was being charged. So I launched my firm with the idea that we spend a lot of money on medicines, but oftentimes we have little understanding of where the money actually goes.
Wow. You got a pretty good team that's with you as well. A couple of folks that have been desirous of being in pharmacy related, the pharmacy business and being a pharmacist. Is that correct?
Well, I've got two pharmacists on my team who are expert data analytics folks. My background after I left the pharmacy program was actually journalism. And interestingly, as I'm sure as you might understand, sometimes in order to learn things, you got to look at it from a reporter's perspective. And I very much have looked at myself as engaging in drug pricing journalism. We do that work on behalf of state attorney generals, state auditors, Medicaid programs, and employers. But I think the underlying premise is essentially the same as any reporter.
Got it. So tell me this. You said something earlier about $245 million. So let's talk about that spread between, I guess we'll say manufacturing cost and then markups. What is it as a business owner, but also, as you just said, kind of a pharmaceutical journalist? What have you? Why has that happened at such a increasingly higher rate? I mean, the spread has only gotten bigger over the last 10 to 15 years. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. So think of it this way. When we talk about drug pricing, the first thing that people think of are drug companies, right? Mm-hmm. Well, drug companies, they sell drugs to wholesalers. Think AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, McKesson. You've probably seen the trucks.
Yep.
Pharmacies buy those drugs from the wholesalers, and then pharmacies are paid via pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, who work on behalf of health insurance companies. That's essentially the five main pillars of the stool. Drug companies inflate prices over time, but negotiate big discounts with PBMs, who ultimately determine which drugs will be covered under a benefits program. And then they determine where you as a patient can get those medicines filled. So what we found in Ohio, and other states have seen this too, is where the PBM, working on behalf of the insurance company, they negotiate whatever they can with the pharmacy, let's say $5 to pay them for a specific drug claim. Well, what we found was that on the other end of the transaction, PBMs were reporting a much higher rate back to the Medicaid program, in essence, $11, and pocketing the difference. That was just one way that one member of the drug supply chain can engage in arbitrage, or buy low, sell high, don't tell anybody the difference.
So talk to me about how online pharmacies, if they have had any impact on that. Does it really made any difference?
It depends, right? If spread pricing is ultimately taking advantage of an asymmetry of information and capturing the delta, the question then is, who is the proverbial Jeff Bezos of this marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos, his motto is famous: your margin is my opportunity. It stands to reason if medicines are being marked up within the drug channel, then somebody can come in and undercut. Unfortunately, most people don't have a great understanding of what a fair price for a medicine is. Public policy has failed to incentivize lower sticker prices, which means that we rely heavily on a negotiator to essentially effectuate our actual costs. Usually that's our insurance companies and PBMs. But those companies engage in very disparate pricing schemes. You can see the same drug costs $60 under insurance, and the same drug costs $7,500 under insurance at the same time. As a result, we're very under-equipped to navigate what a reasonable price can be, except for one market entrant, really, and that's Mark Cuban, Cost Plus Drug Company. Mark Cuban, the Shark Tank guy, started a pharmacy business a couple of years ago and decided to start publishing his prices. And so he has a very simple, transparent methodology. I paid this much for the drug, and here's my markup, and here's my shipping fee, and voila, that's the price. Outside of that, there hasn't been many market entrants outside of some independent pharmacists who have been willing to put all the cards on the table.
So the PBM part of this, they're essentially the middleman or middle person, if you will, between the manufacturers and really patients' health plans. So can they be eliminated? I don't mean eliminated literally, but can that be taken out of the equation because it sounds like what Mark is doing is let's get this more of a direct-to-consumer or end-user platform. Am I right about that in terms of how the PBMs are kind of mucking up the process here?
Without question. And look, in fairness to PBMs, right, we brought them in years ago to act as a necessary counterweight. Drug companies want to make more money today than they made yesterday. The wholesalers do too. The pharmacies do too. So the idea was we bring in PBMs first to just do the simple act of processing a claim at a pharmacy. But then over time, we looked to the PBMs and said, hey, would you start negotiating these drug claims rather than just paying the bill? Now that you're in the middle of so many of them, maybe you could start pushing down. And that all sounds reasonable. It takes a bully to take on a bully. But the problem is that PBMs are also publicly traded companies, and they also want to make money off the same prescriptions they were hired to make more efficient. And so the problem with the industry is it's really starting to run out of control with conflicts of interest. PBMs get kickbacks from drug companies in exchange for preferring their medicine under our benefits plans. PBMs now own their own pharmacies, mail order pharmacies, specialty pharmacies, where they get to set the prices of the medicines that they then dispense. Conversely, they get to set the prices that their competitors are reimbursed under those benefit plans. So you can see where it starts to become a little bit problematic when a Fortune 15 company, which is the three largest PBMs are now Fortune 15 companies, they get to set their own prices, they get kickbacks from drug companies, and they get to set the prices of their competitors.
So there's a certain amount of monopoly that's there, without a doubt. I mean, that's as I was reading, there's 3 companies, or is it 4 companies that have close to 80% of the prescriptions in the U.S. Is that right?
You're looking at 3 companies: CVS Caremark, Express Scripts, which is owned by Cigna, and OptumRx, which is owned by United Healthcare. Those 3 companies have over 80% of all transactions running through their companies.
So there's clearly a monopoly by 3 companies that are controlling this. So what's the effect? What can be done to affect change in this space? I mean, we're on a progressive, a democratic station right now talking about ways to improve how the end user, the consumer, the voter, is impacted by legislation. And we just had, a bit of legislation get turned back by an executive order. I'm not trying to take you down the political line one way or the other, but how can legislation impact what these 3 companies are able to do?
Well, years ago, most people couldn't spell PBM. It was a hearing in 2016 where Heather Bresch, the CEO of Mylan, who makes the EpiPen, was hauled before lawmakers and said, why are the prices so high? It was the first public setting where somebody came in and said, look, we have our prices are so high because the PBMs and government programs are demanding bigger and bigger kickbacks or rebates off the top of those list prices. 2 years later, the same thing happened with insulin, where we found rising prices of insulin had no actual correlation to the underlying cost because list prices were going up, but the actual negotiated amount after all the rebates were accounted for had actually been going down. So fast forward the tape, every major committee of jurisdiction has had PBMs under their microscope. Under the Biden administration, the FTC began an investigation as well and actually sued PBMs over their alleged role in inflating the prices of insulin. And now with President Trump coming back, right before he came back into office, he said that he was going after them as well. Meanwhile, you have state attorney generals across the country, Republican and Democrat, who have filed lawsuits against PBMs for their role in inflating the prices of medicines and Medicaid programs, but also their role in perhaps exacerbating the problems of the opioid crisis because of kickbacks that they were getting from Purdue Pharma on OxyContin. So it's coming at them from all sides right now, and legislation is certainly a pathway, but I think litigation and market-based solutions, especially if we could get more transparency in these transactions, I think all those things can help root out some of the inefficiencies and restore PBMs to what they were supposed to be in the first place.
Yeah, so both legislation and litigation, from what you're saying and seeing, Antonio, are going to be the better tools to use to affect change. You said the consumer component. Talk to me about that. What's the consumer component to that? Or the market? You didn't say consumer. You said market. So talk to me about the market impact of that.
So I'll give you a little story. Right down the road from me here in Columbus, there's a pharmacy that opened called Freedom Pharmacy. It was an independent pharmacy owner who wanted to start his own practice because he didn't want to take orders from the bosses, and he wanted to create a pharmacy in his own, like the way he always envisioned. So he started that pharmacy and realized that he couldn't keep it going. He either had to raise his prices so high in order to fit into an insurance-based model, and he basically had no financial control because the PBMs would dictate his reimbursements. Mm-hmm. So what he did is he said, I'm done with this. I'm buying the place right next door, and I'm opening a new pharmacy, and we won't accept insurance. And as a result, I can have prices that are a fraction of what they are right next door. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of reasons that we don't have time to get into, just trust me when I say, insurance, regardless of whether it's good or bad, it incentivizes providers to charge higher prices. And so by unplugging from a system that incentivizes higher prices and just saying, look, I'm going to work with the consumer directly, now all of a sudden those bogus inflated drug prices that everybody sees, they evaporate. And so that, from a consumer's perspective, the tool that the consumer has is shopping around, getting to know your local pharmacist, getting to know what opportunities there are for savings, both inside and outside the system. It's unfortunately very complicated and time-consuming, which most people don't do. But that's the best way that you can take your own fate into your own hands. Well,
I got a little bit of a chill of connected conversation when you were going down this path. And let me read you a text that we received from one of our callers. She says, I worked for an insurance company in 2003. Their personally owned PBM arbitrarily denied and approved medications, as well as jacking up the cost, as well as throwing more meds in the highest tier that they had the lowest insurance coverage. So I know you can kind of peel that apart and talk about it, but basically what you're saying and what this listener is saying is that the insurance companies have had way too much control for way too long, and it stunted the market's ability to affect pricing. Is that a good, fair observation?
Yeah, so I'll give you, again, in color, right? 2 years ago, we did a study on a very popular multiple sclerosis drug called Tecfidera. The list price of the brand drug was $8,275 per claim, all right? Totally unaffordable for almost every American, right?
Yep.
Well, the reason we have high drug prices is a trade-off, right? We tell drug companies we're going to give you a patent, we're going to let you set the price, and in exchange, after a certain number of years, that drug will go generic, which means everybody gets the recipe for the drug. And now all of a sudden competition can beat the heck out of the price of it. And all of a sudden a very expensive drug can become very affordable. Well, that $8,275 drug, Tecfidera, after just 10 months of generic competition, pharmacies could buy the generic version for $200. Yet if you look at PBM plan designs, and we did this specifically looking in Medicare, despite over $8,000 of savings between the brand and the generic, over half of seniors were enrolled in Part D plans where they forced them to continue getting the brand. And then another 40% of seniors were enrolled in plans that gave them the option between the brand and the generic, but they still incentivized them to get the $8,200 drug and not the $200 drug.
So how did
that is a broken system.
Yeah, this is why we're going to have you back, because of course, you know, we keep talking and having a conversation, and we go down these paths of new knowledge. So help listeners understand the part that you said they incentivized, that the last couple of sentences, that's where I think a lot of people have a disconnect in understanding that, if you can.
So think of it this way, right? If I'm an insurance company and I make money off of everything that I cover, right, I want more things to cover, and I want the patient to have greater need to access their care and medicines through my front door. So an environment of deflated prices, who needs an insurance company, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, for most generic drugs are very cheap, okay? Let's think of this like auto insurance. You don't call your insurance company because you need to change the windshield wipers on your car. Think of that as the generic drug, right? Your generic drugs in general are extremely affordable. You can acquire them for $5, $10, almost every single one of them. So why do we have insurance for a cheap deflationary market? Well, because they make a lot of money by underpaying pharmacies and then slapping big markups on top of that, which is what we found in the state of Ohio Medicaid program years ago. So insurance companies desire inflated prices, not because they want to pay them, but because they want you to be able to they want you nudged in the direction of working through them in order to access whatever medicine or healthcare service you need.
Mm-hmm. Is there, and this is kind of our last question, but it'll lead us to other questions in the future. Is there still that stigma that generic drugs aren't as good as non-generic drugs? And does that allow the PBMs to push to your direction? I'm sorry, to what you said about the direction of and the incentive part of insurance. Do you see my question? By making okay, then I'll shut up and let you answer. Sorry.
No. Yeah, years ago there was that stigma because years ago we didn't really have generic drugs. It was the Hatch-Waxman Act, which was a bipartisan congressional effort that basically created the environment for interchangeability of generic drugs. There is a very small niche of the consumer marketplace that still demands brand drugs because they want them, and A, and B, they can afford them. But by and large, an overwhelming majority of the Americans, I'm talking like 97, 98% of Americans, when they go to their pharmacy and they have a choice between a brand and generic, they opt for the generic because of the savings.
97%. That's astonishing. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, Antonio. I'm a common sense kind of guy. At least I believe I am. But it's still astonishing that weight, that percentage hasn't dominated the conversation in terms of what drugs people should actually be leaning toward. So, listen, I appreciate you being with us this morning. I sat here and I always say this when we have a guest on, and that is I have to stop taking notes and just listen to the content. And brother, you brought some content this morning, which I really, really appreciate you being with us. And maybe we'll have you back again in the near future because I'd like to talk more about some of the solutions and some of the ways to go forward and empowering consumers with the information that you have. How can folks find you? How can folks follow what you're doing and the information that you and your team at 3 Access Advisors are putting out there?
Yeah, if you want to become a drug pricing nerd, I never recommend it, but just in case, you can visit us at the number 3 Access, AXIS advisors.com. We have a lot of public-facing research that I like to think is digestible. You might disagree, but if for nothing else, it'll put you to sleep sometimes.
Well, I've said this to a number of folks. One of the things that we try to do here with this show, Antonio, is give folks information where they become a little bit more informed. And if it puts you to sleep and you learn something, then you need to get after the information at 3. That's the number 3, Access, AXIS advisors.com, and follow my man, Antonio Ciaccia, and thank you for being with us this morning. I'm going to nerd out as well. So we appreciate you taking some time to be with us on Choose Views. Thanks, Antonio. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
You too, man. Bye now. Wow. That was a brain full of information. And I think that you guys are probably hating me going, oh, my God, Richard, I couldn't keep up. But it's a topic that's important to all of us, whether you be someone that has medications that you have to take on a regular basis or situational. You know somebody that is part of the system. And that's why having a topic and a conversation with someone that is an expert in that space is valuable to us. So check him out, 3 Access Advisors. His name is Antonio Ciaccia, C-I-A-C-C-A. And definitely information I think you guys can benefit from. Hey, it's Monday. We've gotten through another show, and I'm glad to have been with you as we kick off this, what I'll call anniversary week of Choose Views on WCPT. And I just want to say that thanks to so many people, and I'll be giving thanks out through the course of the week, and individuals and to you guys in general for being with us, and to the team here at WCPT for keeping this show rolling along, and all that. We really appreciate the Devons of the world and the Henrys of the world, the Lady Bs, the Pauls, and all the rest of the folks that are here day to day, rolling up their sleeves and making sure that we keep our shows live. And shout outs to my colleagues, to Joan and to Patty and to Edwin and to our folks at Out Chicago, and all of our other branded shows as well. We are a team here, and we're doing the best we can to bring you the best that we've got. And hopefully you guys will be a part of our 20th anniversary, which is 20th anniversary, which is coming up in May. It's hard to say that because how cool is that? We've been around for a bit. Devin's fighting it, guys. He's fighting it this morning. Bless you, Devin. But anyhow, guys, thanks for being with us. And we really appreciate not just my show, but us as a team here at WCPT. And now that our partnership with Heartland Signal is really taking off, we're excited to be able to bring you the information that we bring each and every day. So stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show, Tom Hartman, Joan Esposito, and, of course, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. This is Richard Chew. This is Chew's Views. Take a deep breath, guys, and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.